Welcome to this week's Insights with Eric Hacopian. Well, this has certainly been a very eventful week in Armenia. The events of this week really started last Thursday morning when, after the dismissal of the Army Chief of Staff by the Prime Minister, there was a press release sent out by the Chiefs of Staff of the Army demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister. This process ended yesterday with a political understanding between the President of Armenia and the Prime Minister, which set up the institutional system in which led to the dismissal of the Army Chief of Staff. What happened in between these 6 days was the following. Immediately after this press release demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister, it led to counter demonstrations on both sides, large demonstrations on behalf of the Prime Minister led by him at Republic Square, where his supporters came out denouncing what they perceived as a military coup, and large anti-government demonstrations that happened mostly in front of the Parliament and the Presidential Palace demanding his dismissal. The lesson here to learn is that, as difficult as this week was, the political process worked. At the end of the day, it was the President and the Prime Minister who sat together and decided if the Army Chief of Staff should come or go, and it was not the military leadership that decided who's the President and who's the Prime Minister. So as difficult as it was, the process worked itself out the way it should, through politics and in a peaceful manner. The second thing of note that happened this week, which was actually an encouraging development, is that the Prime Minister publicly called for new snap elections. This is a very positive step because what we need to essentially break the political logjam and the crisis that we have is a new set of elections and a new government that is far more reflective of the country today. This in and of itself is actually part of a process because resignation of the Prime Minister is not necessarily what immediately triggers elections. What is needed is that for all three parties in the Parliament, which is the primary one led by the Prime Minister and the two opposition ones, will essentially need to agree to a process in which the Prime Minister resigns and there are two votes in which no one puts up a candidate. And once there's no candidate by any party, that will trigger an election, a snap election. So far, of the two opposition parties, Bright Armenia has already accepted this notion that they will not put up a candidate. The last holdout party for right now is the party that's aligned with Gagik Tsarukyan, the noted oligarch who has the second largest party in the parliament, actually. But as we know, right now there are actually negotiations going on. And if these negotiations are successful, we will get to what we need to, which are snap elections over the course of the next few months. The third thing of note this week is what the opposition response has been to the events of this week and to what seems to be a political consensus to have new elections. The response of the 17 political parties, or what is called the street opposition here, which is on paper led by Vasken Manukyan, the former Prime Minister, is been to reject elections. Now this is quite interesting because if you're in opposition and you want to take power, you actually want elections. But it has become very clear over the last few weeks that the opposition is interested in one thing, and that is taking power by whatever means necessary. In fact, this week, Vasken Manukyan actually called for a military takeover. So what they're essentially calling for, and we need to be clear about this, is they want to take power without elections when in every public opinion survey, their combined forces and their approval rating does not go above 20% of the Armenian population. So I think we need to get a clear understanding of who these people are and what they represent. Because if they were sincere about their desire for changing the government and removing the Prime Minister, they would support elections, which is the only way to remove a government. But their actions and their response tells us, and is quite revealing about who they are. Unfortunately, what they seem to be is they represent, for a lack of a better phrase, the black hand of reaction. Their purpose here is not to reform the country, it is to return the country to what it was prior to the 2018 revolution, which was a country led by oligarchs, for oligarchs, that looted the country and weakened it for the past 25 years. What they hate the Prime Minister for is not for the mistakes he made or the mistakes he made during the war or before the war or after the war. They actually want to remove him for all the good things that he did, which is to dismantle monopolies, collect taxes from the oligarchs, and try to reform the legal system. That is not something that we can accept. And that's the primary reason that they have not caught on or have any great popular support among the average Armenian citizen. This political crisis that we actually experienced this week is not new. Frankly, the genesis of it goes back 25 years. And it really starts with having a political system that is underdeveloped and not modern in any traditional sense. Let me give you a perfect example. In a normal political system, after the defeat that we suffered, Nikol Pashinyan would have resigned on November 10th, and someone from his party would have become the new prime minister. That did not happen for one reason, because the My Step party and Nikol Pashinyan's party actually is Nikol Pashinyan. Politics in this country is exceptionally personalized. We don't have a politics of left, right, and center, conservative, liberal. What we have is a politics of personalities, and you hear it in the conversation. Someone is a Nikol Akan, someone is a Kocharian Akan, someone is a Levon Akan. That is not the politics that we want. We want a politics in which the divisions are based on ideas, ideologies competing with each other and not personalities. The genesis of this personalization of politics is actually something that is very unfortunately embedded in our culture, which is what I call the savior version of history, in which there is some magical leader out there, some Armenian Lee Kuan Yew, Charles de Gaulle, or Nelson Mandela that's going to come out of the woodworks, reform the country, and make everything right, and make all the decisions without the citizens having any role in this. That's not how politics works. And those personalities, frankly, don't exist. Most political actors in most of the world, most of the time, are frankly vain mediocrities. In order to have a successful democratic system and a successful country and a successful economy, there's no magic leaders. It is a lot of work, a lot of hard work by citizens. It's actually 10,000 acts a day that build a state, that build a country, that build an economy. We should not be looking for magic saviors to save this country. We need to look at creating citizens' organizations and what we can do individually to build this country. On a final note, what we need to do and what we need to be focused on is do the hard work of building a competent state, a competent economy, and a competent political system. We either work together to accomplish this task, or we will pay the price for it later. Thank you for joining me in this week's Insights with Eric Hacopian.